Hi, Sarah. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to chat with you.
Me too. I am excited about this topic because I have I have like so many questions for you. A lot of interest. So we're going to talk about hypnosis today and
Mhm.
hypnotherapy and how that plays a role in our health journey. But before we get into that, can you just give us a little bit of your background and kind of what brought you to this area of specialty?
Sure. Uh, that's a good question. I think I came to hypnosis personally as a way to get to know myself a little bit better. I was in my 30s and I appeared to have all the boxes checked of what I, quote, should be doing. But I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling satisfied. I was always seeking, the next training, the next better thing, up leveling. And no amount of success or achievement was really ever enough for me. And it was leading to stress and burnout and just a overall sort of exhaustion. And that's really what led me on my personal journey to hypnosis. And then I found it very useful. And I think that it's just my nature to go down the road of wanting to teach and help people with things that I have used and found helpful. So that was a natural next step for me after finding, value in the process myself.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so many things you said resonated there because I love the way you said, you were in the burnout, the next thing, we often find like, yeah,
Yeah.
what's the next
Ooh.
training? What's the next certification? What's the next thing? I can relate to that because I have
Hmm.
that achiever personality too. So, we're always talking about taking that step back and connecting with yourself. So I love this.
Yeah.
So let's start with, really what is hypnosis?
Hmm. That's a good question. The the way that I look at it is a meditative state that allows you to uh, get below the surface of the logical, conscious thinking mind and access more the subconscious mind where your emotions live, where your beliefs live, and where all of your much younger past experiences lie. And that's where really the deep embedded beliefs were formed much before you had your conscious logical mind online. So it's a state of mind that allows you to access those parts of you that might not be obvious, or you might not have awareness of in the conscious logical alert state that we spend so much time in.
Okay. So when I'm going to get into what we can do in that, but I do want to just say because I know like if you're people my age that you've seen the like magic show where people are brought up and it's like you're hypnotized now, bark like a dog and doing those things. So I'd love to just address because I know we sometimes have that in our mind, the difference in like,
Sure.
what a true hypnosis practice looks like, what you expect versus some of those things where you're perceived of okay, what is this? And are people really barking because they're being told
Right.
by the magician?
Right, exactly. Well, it's funny. Usually I hear quack like a duck, but
Okay.
bark like a dog, quack like a duck.
Yeah.
Either
Hmm.
way, it's just a form of stage hypnosis, which really is entertainment. And it is still a form of hypnosis, but it is taking, like, the practitioner, the entertainer really is taking someone from the audience who is willing and desiring to be hypnotized for entertainment, and they're going up and they're taking the suggestions from the stage hypnotist, the entertainer, but no one can receive suggestions that they don't want or don't agree with or believe in. So, like, if I was that audience member and I didn't want to go bark like a duck, bark like a
Yeah.
dog, or quack like a duck, um, I wouldn't receive those suggestions. I wouldn't accept them. So I would say this is crazy. I
Mhm.
don't want to do that. But the person who agrees to be the the participant for entertainment purposes is willing and able to receive those suggestions. So, it is a form of hypnosis, but it's not the way that I would practice. And it, you're not going to lose control. You're not going to take suggestions or ideas that you don't already believe or want to be true for you.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a good distinction. So let's move into like how you're using hypnosis in practice and what like, kind of
Sure,
the benefits of getting to that layer are.
sure. Well, I work with clients that come in for all different uh, symptoms. I don't know if that's the right word, but issues that they want to work through or change in their life. And it it often is like a last resort. Like, I've tried medication, I've tried talk therapy, I've tried all these different modalities to help me release the anxiety or release the inner critic that's so harsh and strong. And I haven't been able to do it. I know it's there. I don't want it, but I can't change it. And with hypnosis, it's a different modality that allows you to let go of the labels, let go of the stigma or the shame that might be around it, or the judgment of the issue at hand. And with the acceptance of that, with the compassion for yourself, then you can begin to see those symptoms or those issues for how they've been trying to help you. So I think finding the positive intention of whatever the symptom or issue is allows you to have the compassion and let go of the judgment of it. And then you have the ability to heal, but to find a different way to meet that same need that is less destructive.
Okay, so like let's use the inner critic as an
Hmm.
example. So you
Sure.
have, okay, that we all have an inner critic, unfortunately, most of us do. So you're
Yeah.
saying, okay, I have the inner critic that's giving me these, you need to be better, you need to be doing more, you need to
Mhm.
lose weight, you need to do, all these things that it's telling us. And then you're able to get to a place where you're seeing why you're telling yourself those things.
Right. I always say that there's no bad part. There's just maladaptive or no longer effective strategies. So
Okay.
when we can look at the inner critic and say, okay, how has this been serving me? What is its positive intention for me? And
Okay.
that might be a form of protection, right? If I am my own worst inner critic, if I'm the harshest critic of myself, then no one else can reject me. No one else can,
Yes. Hmm.
be as bad as I am to myself. And it does have some positive qualities, right? It's pushing you to do more, to be better, to succeed, to be healthier, whatever it is in your case. It's just become maladaptive. It's become no longer as effective as it once was.
Okay. And then when you're in the hypnotic state, are
Hmm.
you able to better release that? Like, are you prompting them then to say, like, it's okay to release the inner critic. It's okay to let them go. Like, is that part, you're more malleable in being able to let go of things? Is that kind of from what I understand? But I'm,
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a layer of understanding that comes about when you look at the inner critic for what it's been doing for you.
Mhm.
And with that, it's almost like the inner critic will feel appreciated, will feel validated, and
Okay.
therefore um be like, okay, I've done my job now,
Mhm.
and then it can rest a little bit, or you can, this may sound a little silly, but it's almost like you're negotiating with the inner critic to say, hey, you've done your job all this time, and now I have a different way of protecting myself. I have a different way. I don't need you in the same way, so you can rest or retire, if you will.
Hmm.
If we think of it as like a another persona,
Okay.
if
And
that makes
let's
sense.
talk a little bit about anxiety because I know that's another
Mm.
big thing. So how if you're taking someone through, if someone comes with anxiety, how are we kind of looking at that?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it would be a similar approach of how has the anxiety been serving you,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of times the worry again is a form of protection, right? If I worry enough, I'll have control over the situation, right? If I if I spend so much time thinking about how to prevent this potentially bad thing from happening, I'll prevent it from happening. Which we all know, right? The worry itself is often worse than whatever the
Action.
potential
Hmm.
outcome is.
Yes.
Um, but it feels like a way to control or to have some level of choice over our lives.
Yeah, that used to be me. And when you can let that go, it makes a huge it makes a huge difference. It's a lot. It took a lot of work. Years, I've done
Absolutely.
years and years of all, like that's where I am today. But
Yeah.
it was that I would feel like that protection if if I think
Hmm.
of every different scenario that could possibly happen, then I'll be ready if it does. And then you realize, okay,
Hmm.
that actually just puts you in fight or flight and on alert all the time, and it's
Hmm.
not, you're just imagining all these scenarios and it really doesn't actually protect you anyway. But
Right.
it takes a lot to of thought
Yeah.
reframing of different modalities. This is one great one. So yeah,
Right.
that's great. Now, I know that you also, we were talking, you do this in your practice, you take people through these steps, but you were saying, which I think is why I wanted to share, this with the audience, that you also have things, steps that we can do at home that can be
Hmm.
like a self-hypnosis thing where we can actually start to do some of these things in our own life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have lots and lots of videos on my YouTube channel they're all free recordings that guide you through various processes that are, y- you know, they're they're general, right? They're on
Hmm.
YouTube. They're free. They're for as many people as possible to benefit from. But they do have specific topics, like there's some for anxiety, some for confidence, some for just general relaxation or pain relief. But the deeper work really is something that you would have to go through on your own, right? And some of it just starts with recognition of whatever the issue is at hand, or the symptom or the pattern that you're running. That's generally the first step. It's like let's see what's going on for what it is, without judgment. Just recognize what your reality is, and then you have the choice to do something different.
Hmm. So recognition, yes, recognition. Sometimes putting that mirror up is hard to
Yeah.
say.
I mean, it sounds
Okay.
really simple, but a lot of
Yeah.
times, life is busy. We have,
Mhm.
families, we have work, we have our health to manage, which sometimes can feel like a full-time job in itself.
Mhm.
And so we, often just go through life all in our head and not in our body. And it's hard to even just recognize what the reality is, what you're experiencing, if you don't take time to slow down or to be still or to look inward to your experience. You can miss a lot.
Okay. And one of the questions I know maybe some people have is like, what's the difference? And I mean, they're different modalities, but I just like, just to clarify, because we're saying like you go in your internal, your introspective, your like, what would be the difference between going into like a hypnosis state versus a meditative state? like hypnosis versus meditation?
Sure. They're essentially the a similar state of being, state of mind. The way that I look at meditation versus hypnosis is meditation is um, I don't want to say it's passive, but it's about simply being,
Hmm.
right? It's about just allowing and experiencing whatever happens. Hypnosis can be more of a task oriented or a an active form of exploration, at least in the way that I practice it. So we're looking at making a connection with the inner critic, or looking at some of our past experiences to see how they are playing a role in our present day, situation or experience. So it tends to be a little more active, or like you're trying to do something.
Okay. And do you find that when you're, so like, let's say you're going back and there's a past experience and you're doing this, then are you saying like, okay, are you, you're seeing like, you're saying like, I forgive you for the, or I
Mm.
forgive the situation. And then people are able to let that experience go and have more peace with it after they've done some of that. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's a part of it, I would say. I think everyone's a little bit different in terms of what they need.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what I work with in terms of past experiences is understanding the belief that you might have formed about yourself because of that past experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of the self-forgiveness happens. Because let's say you were 5 and you formed a belief about yourself at 5 that um, you had to achieve to be loved, you had to achieve to be lovable, then that pattern would have continued to be reinforced as you got older, and maybe that contributed to the need for success that we talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that drive for the next training, the next certification, the next everything.
Mm-hmm.
um, and the underlying belief that was driving those patterns was that I had to be successful to be lovable. So when you can look at the fact that you were 5 when you developed that belief and say, okay, I didn't have the same understanding that I have as an adult. I didn't have the same logic and resources and experience in life to say, okay, that's clearly not true or
Mm-hmm.
accurate. And so that's where the self forgiveness comes in. I forgive myself for buying into the belief that I had to be successful to be lovable. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can kind of reframe your belief. You can adopt a new belief that is more accurate and true in your present day as an adult. And then there's, freedom in that.
Mm-hmm. And being in the hypnotic state helps you, allows you to really get to a place where you can recognize some of those beliefs as a
Right.
child that we don't access in our day-to-day busy life.
Right. Because if I were to say,
Mhm.
as an adult, if I were to think about that belief, like I need to be successful to be lovable, I would say, well, of course that's not true, right? My
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
logical brain understands that that's not true, but my subconscious mind adopted that belief when I was 5, so it feels in my body like it's true, and my patterns and my habits are driven by that belief
Mhm.
until I can forgive myself for adopting it, and have the understanding that it isn't really true.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say? So then, are you seeing health change? Because I know some of the things that you said. We were talking about the mind-body connection. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about some health changes you see once we start to clear some of these beliefs and
Sure,
patterns.
sure. Well, sometimes some of these changes are pretty quick, right? They're like within the session, the understanding of how the belief was formed, how it's been informing your life until today, and then that that reprogramming that happens can be very quick. But habits are habits because they work for some
Mhm.
period of time. So it sometimes it can take some time to make those changes. And like you explained how it took a long time to let go of that worrying and that anxiety to find some level of control. And the same is true for patterns that might be impacting physical health. Is we need to have opportunities in our real day-to-day life to choose something different. So when that worry comes up, you can say, okay, this is just my way of trying to protect myself and trying to control the outcome. You pause, you recognize that you're safe, and then you choose a different pattern, and then maybe some physical holding that you might have in your body can start to release and to start to, your shoulders start to drop down, or you're able to relax your abdominals and take a full diaphragmatic breath. And then the nervous system starts to shift, and then we're more relaxed, our stress level is less, and then other things might follow as well in terms of like the health and overall well-being.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you
But
so much for that. So could, because I know, like you said, we said you have a new book coming out, and some of them are things you can do at home. Can you give us just a few of those tips?
sure, sure. Well, as I said, the awareness is the first step,
Okay.
and just finding, acceptance for the reality,
Hmm.
and then looking at how this pattern has served you in some positive way.
Okay.
And that actually is a really challenging step for a lot of folks, because it's like there's a level of frustration or anger or resentment for these patterns when they've been part of our lives for so long, right? Like you might say, this worry is just, it's so overwhelming, it's so stressful, it's like stealing the joy from my life, right? And you can see that when you recognize it for what it is. And so to be asked, what is this, how is this helping you, what is the positive intention of the worry, can be really challenging to actually um, pull back the awareness and say, okay, there is some positive intention for this. Let me take a step back and figure that out. Um, and I think that can be really powerful, just to recognize that, okay, this has been helping me in some way, even though, I'm tired of it and I'm frustrated with it, and it's like I'm ready for it to be
Yeah.
over. Um, but when you can figure that out, when you can have that recognition, you might even, that might be enough. That might be enough to let it go.
Hmm.
But then beyond that, some amount of reprogramming or repatterning will be beneficial. Give
Okay.
yourself a cue or a reminder of, okay, I need to pause when the worry comes up and remind myself that I am safe. Um, and so that can look a lot of different ways. Like some people will put a rubber band around their wrist and like snap the rubber band, or something to interrupt the pattern.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it can look a
Okay.
lot of
Pattern
different ways.
interrupter. Yeah, I like that. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, when you see that pattern coming up, you do an action in order
Hmm.
to break the pattern.
Right. And it gives
Hmm.
you a moment to pause and then
Hmm.
choose something else.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
really bringing that neuroplasticity. We're saying, okay, what's the what's the
Yeah.
new pathway we're creating?
Right. Right. And it does
Yes.
take some practice and some
Uh-huh.
patience,
Yeah.
for
Yeah. When I'm
sure.
working with people, I always say, like, you're gonna do this. And then 2 minutes later, that thought's gonna come right back. And then we're
Yeah.
gonna go back into we're gonna go. put the new thought right back in so
Yeah.
that we can
Yeah.
keep the new pathways going, because a lot of it, yes, is just create, they're sticky. So those old thoughts,
Hmm.
those old patterns are so sticky that we create the new thought, but then it's like, okay, our body, are pulling us right back into that
Right.
old
Right.
framework.
Yeah, absolutely. When I work with clients individually, one-on-one, I will create a recording for them so that they have that repetition of these new beliefs, so that those new beliefs that they do want and the new, qualities of being that they want will become more familiar and with the repetition of that, it's like those are going to stick now, so that you
Mhm.
can let go of the ones that no longer serve you and
Serve
you
you.
replace them.
With new ones. Yeah. Well, this has
Yeah.
all been so helpful. Can you share with our audience where they can find you?
Sure. My website is themindfulmovement.com, and I have all of my things there. And then YouTube is really where most of my content lives. Um, I would say close to 500 now videos of free meditations and hypnosis recordings. So also the mindful movement on YouTube.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm going to go check them out too myself.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone.